Hi guys, I hope you are all well. I just wanted to come on for this video and basically talk through how I've gone through my journey, how I've gone from being in a position where I wasn't particularly happy with my body, I guess, and where I was, and now being in a place where that's completely the opposite, and I'm much more happy with where I am right now. And I want to basically explain my experience through that to hopefully help you guys, because I know that there will likely be a lot of other people whose goal is also weight gain, also changing their sort of body shape, and I almost feel like quite often, obviously with health, fitness realm of things, weight loss, fat loss takes a lot of the focus, because that is probably most people's goals. Whereas we also have a sort of weight gain, that sort of building muscle side of it, which sometimes a sort of bigger journey isn't always highlighted. So hopefully doing this now to try and basically show you, maybe give you some sort of insight, knowledge into how I got there. So just to give you a sort of an idea of the difference so far, is when I was at uni, it's probably when this started when I was really trying to sort of change things. So I didn't train until I was probably about 18, 19, which now is actually quite late. A lot of people will train when they're a lot younger than that. But when I went to uni, I was about 8.5 stone, which is about 119 pounds. So that's pretty light. And that was with me being at about 5'11", I guess, off the top of my head. So I was quite slim build, quite skinny, you might want to say, which I was for the majority of my younger life. Always had that build, and that's something that I wanted to change. So when I was at uni, like I said, I was 8.5 stone, 119 pounds, and now I'm at a place where I am 187 pounds roughly. That's the highest I've been, 13.5 stone roughly. So yes, there's like a 5 stone difference that I've managed to change, managed to build. And that's been over a few years, quite a few years. So that's been over about 7 to 8 years. I'm now basically going to walk through and explain the sort of process and how I went about it, because I don't see that as any sort of mind-blowing goal at all. I see it as, I'm happy with it and I'm proud of it, but I don't see it as anything as mind-blowing. And sort of the first 3 years when I was at uni, even though that's when this started, that was when the least progress was made. And when you're looking at this from a sort of building muscle mass perspective, seeing progress, the initial years when someone's new to training, someone's a beginner, that's actually, you have there the potential to grow the most. So if you're sitting there now and you're at the very beginning stage, you have the potential right there, right now, to grow the most. So if you can implement the stuff that I did over time, if you can implement that early on, then you're going to see progression a lot quicker than what I did. So within that first 3 years of uni, I only put on about, I think it was about a stone, which over 3 years isn't a lot of weight. But the reason why I didn't really progress that much was because my knowledge and experience was a lot less. So I was winging sessions. I wouldn't really have any routine structure. I was at uni, so my nutrition, sleep, stress management was all dire. And all these things have only become more and more important, more and more of a focus as my time's gone on. So those 3 years was literally just me. No structure, just winging it. And the results that came with that were because of that lack of structure. After university, I then had another sort of half a year where, again, progress was probably a little bit faster, but nothing crazy. But that year was when I was deciding what I wanted to do. I understood that I had a passion for health, fitness. This is that sort of half year was when I was really trying to just on my own sort of go away and find information. It would be your classic sort of websites, nothing that I would consider now looking at sort of education side of things, nothing substantial, but where maybe a lot of people try and get their information from. But over that sort of half a year when I was trying to do that and understanding that I had a passion for it, a passion for not only my own goal but then helping others, was when I then decided to take up coaching, to take up sort of becoming a personal trainer. So about a year, half a year to a year after uni, I then became a PT myself, went through all the training for that, which isn't a lot. But over that sort of year after uni was when I was starting to like get a little bit of knowledge, a little bit more experience, trying to get to grips with it a little bit. But after becoming a personal trainer, after becoming a coach, when I then went away, learned as much as I could, started to find very reliable, sound pieces of sort of resources for information, certain people out there. I went to seminars, did courses. I've invested a lot of time and a lot of money into learning, which I then could apply to my training, to my lifestyle, to my nutrition, whatever it was. But that all came together through learning, through gaining knowledge. And in the last sort of 3 to 4 years was when I've seen the most progress because of the stuff that I've learned. And that's what I was getting back to in the very beginning of this video, is that if you can learn as much now when you're very, very early on in the process, when you're a beginner, when you have the most potential to grow, if you can learn as much as possible, then you can apply that. That is going to put you in the best place for maximum potential, maximum growth. And that's something that I would advise very early on, is the sort of learning, becoming educated on it. That part of the process is key. I've never personally had a coach, but I think if I look back now, I probably would have got one earlier on for sure, because I just think, especially when you're trying to learn all this stuff, having someone in your corner by your side actually teaching you this as they put you through it, basically showing you how to apply this stuff, is crazy valuable. So I don't have one. I've never had one in the past, don't have one now. I likely will take one up in the future though, because I always think there's potential to learn more and more and more. So it's definitely something that I would consider. But someone, if you're looking at this from an outside sort of view and considering how to maybe take that extra step, take it a little bit further, I would definitely recommend coaching or something down those lines. Because for me, it was going away to seminars, doing courses where you then learn from a small group of people or someone in particular. So I did a lot of sort of almost one-to-one sort of coaching or learning to a degree. So I'd recommend that. But that's my sort of journey in a nutshell. Yeah, it's like the sort of early 3 years, not much progress made because I didn't really have the knowledge, wasn't structuring anything, just winging things. The last sort of 3 to 4 is when I've really seen the biggest push, and that's been because at the same time my knowledge has increased with that. Okay, so I'm going to quickly run you through now is just some sort of takeaways that I've learned from my journey for trying to gain muscle mass, for weight gain, things that I feel are very important that quite often a lot of people miss, right? So basically sort of the fundamentals are things that you need to be nailing, okay? So first and foremost, as everyone hopefully understands, however, a lot of people don't, is if you're wanting to gain weight, if you're wanting to put on muscle mass, you have to be in a calorie surplus, okay? So basically what that means is you have to be taking in more food than you're burning. Now, why is this so important to understand is because there's a lot of people out there, and this was even me when I began, you'll hear or see the term hard gainer, and you'll think or you'll assume that means you're someone who struggles to gain muscle mass. And a lot of the time what people put that down to, rather than just being they struggle to put themselves in a calorie surplus, which then is going to help them gain weight, they just see it as their build or their genetics, whatever it is stopping them from building muscle mass. And that's never the case, really, okay? It's never the case. The case is you're probably just not succeeding in putting yourself into a calorie surplus. For a lot of people, that can mean a lot of food. You know, throughout this whole journey, my calories have probably on average have to be around about 4,500. Which if you're tracking calories now, you might think is a lot. You might not. It depends on how many calories you need. But what I'm saying is, calorie surplus is key. You need to make sure you're in one. Okay. Secondly, don't confuse sort of weight gain with muscle gain. And what I mean by this is, again, a lot of people when they're trying to add muscle mass understand that obviously your weight is going to want to increase as time goes on. However, also understand that in terms of a ratio between muscle and fat will increase at a faster rate than muscle will when you're in this surplus, okay? So quicker weight gain is not always better, because quicker weight gain might result in a lot faster body fat accumulation, okay? And when that happens, it means quite often you might have to cut back a little bit earlier, and I'll come on to that in a minute. But basically what the point I'm trying to get across here is, make sure you're viewing it as you're doing all you can to gain muscle mass, not you're doing all you can to gain weight. Because quite often a lot of people almost not undo a lot of good work, but set themselves back a little bit because they focus on gaining weight. Okay, so basically the reason why this is so important is because you'll often see people go through a mass gaining phase, then they'll go into like a fat loss phase, then they'll go back into like a mass gaining phase and back into a fat loss phase. And you'll probably see that with most people, because that's how you, or to a degree, you do it. Okay, so basically, as I mentioned there, so when you go into a mass gaining phase or a weight gaining phase with the intention of building muscle mass, like I said, you're going to accumulate body fat. So which means you're going to get to a point where your body fat levels are going to get relatively high for whatever level that is for you. You're then going to likely want to cut back. So you go into a fat loss phase. The idea here is that you're dropping body fat while maintaining the muscle you've built. So you get leaner to a point where you're then going to be in a better position to then go again into another mass gaining phase and repeat. Okay, so it's almost like going up and down, but over the big picture, your weight's going to slowly be increasing. Okay, so that's a way to sort of try and long term keep tabs on how much body fat you're holding while gaining muscle mass. Now, the issue with people who focus on weight gain over muscle gain, like I've spoken about, is that people will then in this mass gaining phase won't be able to spend as long in their mass gaining phase because they gain body fat too quickly, and then they'll get to a point where they are uncomfortable with the amount of body fat they have, and then they have to cut back, go into a fat loss phase. And ideally, we want to spend as long as we can in a mass gaining phase before we have to cut back, before we have to pull back, because obviously the longer you spend in the mass gaining phase, the more time you have at potentially putting on muscle mass. So that's one issue people have, and that's one thing we need to be aware of. You want to make sure you're focusing on muscle gain rather than weight gain, okay? So yeah, so in terms of how people cycle through it or how people go through it, that tends to be the patterns. People go through mass gain phase, fat gain phase, mass gain phase, fat gain phase, and so on. That's in a very general sort of overview. Now obviously, because we have to go through multiple phases, and you'll have to do this time and time again, it depends on which weight you want to put on. But the whole process of gaining muscle mass is a slow process, okay? If you're doing this sort of naturally, which I did, a lot of people will probably, who watch this, will be doing, it is a slow process, okay? So you have to be patient, you have to be consistent, and just understand that you will have to put time. You will have to put a lot of months, probably even a lot of years, to get to where you want to be, okay? Again, I'm not saying fat loss is easy, but you know, someone can drop a lot of weight and get in good shape within a 12-week period. Whereas if you're wanting to put on a considerable amount of muscle mass, that might take you years. So you have to understand that this is going to take time. And over that time, what you need to ensure you're doing is you need to ensure that you're progressively eating and training. So what that means is, as time goes on, as you're building muscle mass, as you're getting more experience with training, more experience with sort of, getting more experience with training, but getting more, your body's sort of adapting to your current situation. So when you're gaining more muscle mass, you're likely over time going to have to progress eating. So basically your eating is going to have to increase, and over time your training is going to have to progress as well, okay? So again, to keep this simple, not to go into too much detail, with training, there's various tools you can use in terms of how to progress things. A lot of people tend to start off too early in terms of how much volume they're doing, and they tend to just go all out. What I would say is, from a training perspective, is start on as low a volume as you need to actually grow, and then you have so much room to then build from. Okay, so if you're starting your volume down here, you have all this to play with. Whereas if you go in and you try and do everything possible and your volume starts up here, you've got nowhere to go. Okay, so start with your volume small in terms of the amount you're doing. Make sure your execution intensity is good. A lot of people's execution and intensity is not very good at all. So take a step back, make sure your form and execution's spot on, make sure you're training hard enough, make sure your intensity is good. Then you can focus on progressions from a sort of how much weight you're lifting, from a sort of building reps and weight over time. And then you can start looking at progressions from volume. So that's going to be weight and reps as well, but also like sets, and you can build on it progressively over time, okay? Similarly with food, like I said, that will progress, that will need to sort of follow suit with training, okay? So from a sort of smaller time frame, once your training sort of volume increases, you might need to follow that up with food to help you recover. But from a big picture perspective, you might have found early on that you could gain weight on 3,500 calories, but as the years and years and years go on, you're probably going to likely find that's going to need to now increase and be higher to get a similar level, because now obviously your body's requiring more energy to keep the sort of condition that you are now in, the muscle mass that you've built. Okay, so just bear in mind that as time goes on, you're likely going to need to progress both things, training, nutrition, in some form as time goes on. Lastly, the other two other things I want to focus on and want to sort of emphasize this, because again, a lot of people do not take this stuff seriously enough, and it will make a massive difference, is your sleep and your stress management. So again, just to keep this dead simple, make sure you're prioritizing them, make sure you're putting emphasis on them, make sure you're trying to make them as good as possible. Sleep is key for recovery, and when it comes to sort of trying to gain muscle mass, when it comes to trying to progress, recovery is more important than training. So you can have the best training program in the world, but if you can't recover from that very well, you're not going to adapt. And it's when we adapt, that's when we're going to grow muscle mass. So recovery is key. So sleep has to be a priority. Again, at university, this is probably why I didn't see as good results as I did the 3-4 years afterwards. Because at uni, you sleep shit. So make sure your sleep is a priority, okay? And secondly, with that, make sure your stress is managed very well. You know, in an ideal world, training is a stressor, so we want to be stressed while training, but then we want to be as relaxed as possible the rest of the time, because that's when the body's going to adapt to that stressor, okay? That's an ideal world. Obviously, real world, that might not be the case. So just try and manage your stress as best as possible, okay? Hopefully this has helped. Hopefully this has given you some sort of insight. But my main takeaways is this. 1, go away, learn, get as much knowledge as possible. Get one-to-one help if you need it. It's very valuable, but make sure you invest time, and maybe very well likely might need money into learning and gaining knowledge. 2, be patient, be consistent. It will take a while. 3, I'm going to say prioritize your sleep and stress management, because recovery is more important than training. And then 4, I need to put 5 there. 4, you've got to make sure that your training and nutrition is progressive as time goes on. So don't start thinking with everything in. Start thinking with minimum effective, and then build from that as time goes on. Hope that's helped. If not, or if you've got any more questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll also put my Instagram tag around here somewhere, and then you can follow me on that or message me on that if you need any more help.